Most people believe mastery comes from talent, from being born different, faster, smarter, more gifted. That belief sounds comforting, because if excellence is genetic, then failure isn't your fault. But that belief is also the reason most people stay average for life. Samurai knew this centuries ago, and that is why they mastered everything they touched, not just combat, but tea, calligraphy, archery, and life itself. They never chased superiority over others, that they chased something far more dangerous: perfection of the self, one ordinary day at a time. Before we go any further, if you're tired of shallow motivation and soft advice, subscribe. Now, this channel is not about feeling good, it's about becoming unshakable. There's a story from feudal Japan about a swordsman who won more than 60 duels without a single recorded loss. When people asked him what made him different, they expected some secret technique, some advanced trick, some mystical edge. Instead, his answer disappointed them. He said he never thought about defeating his opponent. He only thought about perfecting his own movement that day. Nothing flashy, nothing heroic. Just relentless refinement of what already existed. That mindset alone separated him from everyone else. Because most people don't lose due to lack of intelligence or opportunity. They lose because they're obsessed with results instead of process. They want outcomes without foundations, recognition without repetition, and progress without boredom. The samurai approach to mastery was built on an uncomfortable truth. Excellence is not impressive while it's being built. It only looks impressive after years of invisible discipline. The first principle samurai lived by was called Kihon, the fundamentals. Basic stances, basic strikes, basic posture. Movements so simple they looked almost childish to an observer. And yet, even warriors who had trained for decades would begin every single session with these basics. Not as a warm-up, not as tradition, but as necessity. Modern people rush past the basics because they don't stimulate the ego. They want complexity because complexity feels like progress. But complexity without foundation is just fragility in disguise. The samurai understood something most people still don't. Mastery is not about knowing many techniques. It's about knowing a few techniques, so deeply that they never fail you under pressure. Ask yourself honestly, can you perform the simplest part of what you're trying to master perfectly, every time, without thinking? If the answer is no, then you don't have a skill problem. You have a foundation problem. We live in a culture that celebrates shortcuts, productivity hacks, advanced systems, secrets that promise results without repetition. But samurai culture rejected this entirely. They returned to basics over and over again until the basics disappeared into instinct. Until action required no debate, no hesitation, no emotional negotiation. They practiced until fundamentals became unconscious. And unconscious skill is the only kind that survives. Stress. This is where most people quit, because fundamentals feel slow. They feel repetitive. They don't reward you with novelty or praise. But fundamentals are not designed to excite you. They are designed to stabilize you. And stability is power. There's a second concept the samurai lived by that modern people violate daily, often without realizing it. It is called Zanshin, the state of continued awareness. To a samurai, an action was not finished when the strike landed. It was finished only when the warrior returned to full readiness. Mind alert, body balanced, awareness intact. Modern work culture is the opposite. People start with excitement and finish with carelessness. They complete 90% of a task and rush forward. They hit send without rereading. They declare something done because they're tired of looking at it, not because it meets their highest standard. This lack of follow-through poisons everything. Projects collapse not because they were badly started, but because they were sloppily finished. Opportunities are missed not because effort was lacking, but because attention faded too early. Zanshin teaches a brutal rule. If you don't finish strong, you didn't finish at all. Completion is not the moment you feel relief. Completion is the moment. Nothing more can be removed without lowering quality. Samurai applied this to every aspect of training. They didn't stop practicing after a successful strike. They completed the entire sequence. They observed what happened after the movement. They reviewed their posture, their breath, their balance. Success once meant nothing. Consistency meant everything. This is why their work endured, not because they worked harder, but because they worked cleaner. Now comes the hardest principle of all, the one that decides who stays on the path and who abandons it. The samurai called it Fudoshin, the immovable mind. This does not mean emotional numbness. It does not mean stubbornness or blind resistance. It means stability under disturbance. A samurai trained his mind to remain calm whether facing a stronger opponent, public criticism, unexpected failure, or slow progress. He did not depend on mood. He did not negotiate with discomfort. He did not abandon his discipline because emotions shifted. Modern life attacks this constantly. You receive criticism from people who don't understand your path. You fail publicly. You watch others progress faster than you. You hit obstacles that weren't part of the plan. Most people internalize these experiences as personal verdicts. I'm not good enough. Maybe this isn't for me. I should try something else. The samurai response was colder and wiser. They separated emotion from action. Feeling discouraged did not cancel training. Negative feedback was analyzed, not absorbed. Others' success became data, not insult. Fudoshin is not built through inspiration. It is built through repetition under resistance. Each time you practice when you don't feel like it, the mind hardens. Each time you continue despite doubt, the path becomes clearer. Each time you refuse to quit, identity changes. This is how mastery is formed, not through breakthroughs, but through endurance. And this is where the modern mindset fails. Again, people want confidence before commitment, but confidence comes after survival. The samurai did not wait to feel ready. They trained until readiness no longer mattered. These principles are simple, but simple does not mean easy, and that is why they work. Most people hear ideas like these and nod. Then they return to comfort, return to distraction, return to inconsistency. But mastery does not ask for your opinion. It asks for your behavior. It asks whether you will return to the basics tomorrow, whether you will finish what you start fully, whether you will continue when motivation disappears. This path has never been popular, and it was never meant to be, because not everyone wants to be strong. Some people just want to feel validated. This channel exists for those who are done with weakness, those who are ready to train quietly, relentlessly, without applause. If that is you, stay. Most people misunderstand what slows them down. They blame lack of time, lack of energy, lack of motivation. But the real problem is more subtle and more dangerous. They never stay with anything long enough for depth to form. They skim life instead of carving into it. They collect information but avoid friction. They touch many things but master nothing. The samurai saw this pattern long before modern distractions existed. They understood that mastery is not blocked by difficulty. It is blocked by impatience. Impatience makes you abandon fundamentals too early. Impatience makes you seek novelty instead of refinement. Impatience convinces you that if progress is not visible, it must not be happening. But real progress is silent. It happens below the surface, where ego cannot measure it. This is why the samurai returned to Kihon again and again, even when it felt redundant. They did not ask whether it was exciting. They asked whether it was correct. And correctness mattered more than comfort. In modern terms, this means something uncomfortable. If you cannot execute the simplest version of your craft under pressure, then everything advanced is an illusion. Complexity built on weak basics does not scale. It collapses. The moment stress enters the system, that is why so many people look capable in calm conditions, but fall apart when stakes rise. Their skill exists only when circumstances are friendly. Samurai trained so that their ability survived chaos. They practiced basics until boredom dissolved into precision. Until movement became quiet. Until there was nothing left to add, only things to remove. And removal is the highest form of refinement. This same discipline applied to how they treated effort. Samurai did not confuse intensity with effectiveness. They were not obsessed with doing more. They were obsessed with doing correctly. One clean repetition was worth more than 10 sloppy ones. One finished task was worth more than 5 half-complete attempts. Zanshin governed this mindset. The understanding that attention must outlast action. In modern life, attention is fragmented. People multitask, interrupt themselves, abandon tasks mentally long before they are physically finished. This creates a pattern of shallow completion. Things get done, but never done well. The surface is touched, but depth is avoided. Zanshin demands something rare today. Presence until the very end. It asks you to stay mentally engaged when the exciting part is over. To review when others rush forward. To polish when fatigue suggests stopping. This final phase is where quality is decided. Not at the beginning. Not in the middle. At the end. Most people quit too early because finishing properly feels disproportionately demanding compared to starting. But that extra tension is what separates average from exceptional. Anyone can begin. Few can conclude. With care, this principle alone, if practiced consistently, would elevate most people beyond their peers. Not because they are smarter, but because they respect completion. The final obstacle the samurai prepared for was internal instability. Because no technique survives a weak mind. Fudoshin was not philosophy, it was insurance. Insurance against fear, against ego, against comparison, against despair. Samurai knew that the external world would always challenge their resolve. So they trained the one thing they could control completely. Their response. Modern people are trained to react. Samurai were trained to remain. When emotion rose, they did not follow it blindly. When doubt appeared, they did not negotiate with it. When progress slowed, they did not reinterpret the path as a mistake. They stayed. This ability to stay is rare. And it is becoming rarer today. Discomfort is treated as a signal to stop. Boredom is treated as a problem. Resistance is treated as a sign that something is wrong. Samurai treated all three as confirmation that training was working. Fudoshin develops only when you continue despite inner turbulence. When you do not need to feel confident to act. When you do not need praise to persist. When you do not need immediate results to remain disciplined. Each time you act without emotional permission, your mind becomes steadier. Each time you continue when quitting feels justified, your identity shifts. Over time, this creates a quiet strength that does not announce itself. This is the strength people mistake for talent. But it is not talent. It is accumulated obedience to the process. Mastery is not dramatic. It is repetitive. It is often lonely. It rarely looks impressive while it is happening. But it compounds in ways that shallow effort never can. The samurai did not ask how long mastery would take. They asked only whether they were still walking the path correctly. Time was irrelevant. Direction was everything. And this is where most modern approaches fail. They optimize for speed instead of alignment. They chase milestones instead of stability. They measure progress by comparison instead of control. Samurai measured progress by internal standards. Was the movement cleaner? Was the mind calmer? Was attention sharper than yesterday? These are slow metrics. But they do not lie. If you adopt this way of thinking, something uncomfortable will happen. You will progress more slowly than people chasing shortcuts at first. They will appear ahead, louder, more confident, more celebrated, but their progress is fragile. Yours will not be, because mastery does not reward urgency. It rewards consistency under boredom, discipline under doubt, and presence under pressure. This path does not guarantee success in the way people define it. It guarantees something more valuable: control over yourself, and that is the foundation of everything worth mastering. Mastery does not arrive as a moment of triumph. It arrives quietly when nothing feels dramatic anymore, when the basics no longer feel basic, when discipline no longer feels heavy, when showing up stops requiring negotiation. This is the moment most people never reach, not because it is difficult, but because it is invisible. The samurai understood that mastery is revealed not in moments of intensity, but in moments of neutrality, when there is no excitement, no fear, no rush, only action executed correctly, again and again. This is why they did not chase passion. Passion fluctuates. They trained consistency. Modern culture teaches you to listen to how you feel. Samurai culture taught you to act regardless of how you feel. One creates volatility, the other creates reliability. And reliability, over time, becomes power. If you strip mastery down to its essence, it is not intelligence. It is not creativity. It is not even effort. It is obedience. Obedience to fundamentals. Obedience to completion. Obedience to the path when progress is slow and recognition is absent. This is why mastery feels lonely. Because most people leave once the emotional reward disappears. They mistake boredom for stagnation. They mistake resistance for failure. They mistake silence for lack of progress. But silence is where real change happens. The samurai never asked whether they were inspired. They asked whether their stance was correct, whether their awareness was intact, whether their mind was steady. These questions do not care about mood. They care about alignment, and alignment compounds. When fundamentals are solid, pressure does not break you. When follow-through is complete, quality becomes automatic. When the mind is unmoved, obstacles lose their power. None of this happens quickly, but all of it happens inevitably if the path is walked long enough. Most people want mastery without transformation. They want results without identity change. But mastery demands that you become someone else, someone who finishes, someone who returns to basics without resentment, someone who continues without needing reassurance. This is not a motivational message. Motivation fades. This is a structural reality. The samurai path does not promise comfort. It promises control. Control over your reactions. Control over your standards. Control over your direction when everything external tries to pull you off course. If you walk this path long enough, others will call you disciplined. They will call you talented. They will call you different. But they will not see the years of repetition, the quiet mornings, the unfinished applause. The decisions to stay when leaving felt justified. That is fine. Mastery does not require witnesses. It requires only one thing: that you return tomorrow and do the work correctly again. This path is not for everyone. It is for those who are done with shortcuts, done with excuses, done with being ruled by their own inconsistency. If that is you, subscribe. This channel is not here to entertain weakness. It exists to build unshakable minds.